Hey, it's Joe, and welcome back to Humanfluence. This is part 3 of Salvation versus Good Works and what will get you into heaven. In parts 1 and 2, we explored the deep connection between faith and good works and the path to salvation. Today, in part 3, we're taking it even further with 10 all-new examples from Scripture that continue to challenge the idea of blind faith and show us that true salvation involves action, transformation, and living with purpose. So let's get into it. First, we have the healing of the blind man, which comes from Mark chapter 8, verses 22 through 26, where Jesus heals a blind man in 2 stages. At first, the man can only partially see, but after a second touch, his vision is fully restored. Here we have a metaphor for faith. It's not always an instant transformation. Sometimes salvation is a gradual process that involves both spiritual and personal growth. Faith opens that door, but the journey requires continual refinement of both our beliefs and actions. This idea of ongoing growth is a key theme in the Bible. It's not about having one big moment of belief, but rather taking consistent steps to live in alignment with that faith. And as we move forward, we'll see more examples of how Jesus teaches that and how our actions matter just as much as our belief. Next, we have the faith of the Canaanite woman. Matthew chapter 15, verses 21 through 28. This Canaanite woman begs Jesus to heal her daughter. At first, Jesus seems hesitant, but her persistence pays off. Jesus praises her great faith and heals her daughter. Another example about how faith is not passive, it's active, persistent, and relentless. The Canaanite woman doesn't just believe, she fights for her daughter's healing, showing us that faith often requires action and perseverance. Our next example is Jesus calming the storm, Matthew chapter 8, verses 23 through 27, where Jesus calms the storm while the disciples panic. After the storm is stilled, Jesus asks, "Why are you afraid?" Faith is not passive. It's an active choice to trust and stay calm even when things seem out of control. In this case, good works are represented by the internal discipline to act with faith, not fear. As we can see, faith without works is incomplete, whether it's persistence, discipline, or courage. Good works are the actions that make faith tangible. Let's explore another example where leaving behind the old life is the ultimate act of faith in action. The call of Matthew. In Matthew 9, verses 9 through 13, Jesus calls Matthew, a tax collector, to follow him. Matthew doesn't just believe in Jesus, he gets up, leaves his lucrative but morally questionable job, and follows. A profound example of how salvation requires action, not just belief. He changed his entire life, showing us that good works often mean making difficult sacrifices to live in alignment with our faith. Next, we have the cleansing of the 10 lepers, Luke chapter 17, verses 11 through 19. Jesus heals 10 lepers, but only one returns to give thanks. Jesus acknowledges this act of gratitude, saying, "Your faith has made you well." But let's break that down. It wasn't just faith that healed the man, it was his action of returning to give thanks, showing us that salvation isn't just about what we receive, but about how we respond and act in return. Gratitude is a good work that reflects a heart transformed by faith. These examples reinforcing that good works are not just extra, they're essential to living out faith. Whether it's leaving behind the old life, expressing gratitude, or acting with courage, the path to salvation is built on what we do, not just what we believe. Now let's move on to an example that shows how we should use our resources wisely. The parable of the unjust steward, Luke chapter 16, verses 1 through 13. The unjust steward, a manager who, despite being dishonest, uses his final days wisely to settle debts. Though he's far from perfect, his shrewd actions are praised. What does this tell us? It's not enough to have faith. We must act wisely and with purpose in how we live and use our resources. Here, good works are more than moral actions. They're also about making wise, intentional decisions. Again, in alignment with our faith. Next, we have the raising of Lazarus. John 11, verses 1 through 44. Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead, but before that miracle happens, we see Martha and Mary take action by seeking out Jesus. Their faith wasn't just belief, it was active. They reached out for help, and through their actions, Lazarus is raised. Faith, paired with good works, leads to life-changing results. Faith and action go hand in hand, and the Bible makes it clear time and time again. Good works brings faith to life. Our next parable focuses on sacrifices we make. Next, we have the parable of the hidden treasure, Matthew 13, verse 44. Jesus tells the story of a man who finds a hidden treasure and sells everything he has to obtain it. But what does this tell us about good works? Sometimes living out our faith requires great sacrifices. The man's willingness to give up everything he owns shows that good works often involve letting go of worldly attachments in order to live in alignment with a higher purpose. Example 9, Jesus and the fig tree. Mark 11, verses 12 through 14 and 20 through 25. Jesus curses a barren fig tree for not bearing fruit, a direct metaphor for faith that doesn't produce good works. A tree that doesn't bear fruits is useless, just as faith that doesn't result in action is empty. Jesus uses this example to show us that good works are the natural outcome of true faith. Without them, faith is hollow. And as we get closer to the end of part 3, it's important to remember that good works aren't just suggested, they're expected. They are the fruits of our faith. And with that, we'll finish with Peter walks on water. Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 33. We have the story of Peter walking on water. When Jesus calls Peter out to the boat, Peter steps forward in faith, but when he starts to doubt, he sinks. This story shows us that faith requires bold action, stepping out off the boat, even when it's risky or uncomfortable. Good works are about trusting our faith enough to act, even when it's difficult. And when we falter, we can trust that Jesus will catch us, but we still need to take that first step. So there you have it. 10 more examples from Scripture that show how good works are essential to salvation, coupled with faith. Whether it's the persistence of the Canaanite woman, the sacrifice of the man seeking the hidden treasure, or Peter's courageous step off the boat. Stories, metaphors, and allegories to illustrate that faith without action is incomplete. Remember, it's not about what we believe, it's about how we live, how we treat others, and what we do in the world. Until part 4, keep seeking, keep questioning, leave your comments below. I'll link parts 1 and 2, and I'll see you in the next one. Humanfluence out.